Hello everybody, this is NateMo519 and I'm going to be doing a reenactment of the book The True Confessions of Charlotte Doyle. So let's get started. So she starts off walking to the docks for her voyage back to Providence, Rhode Island. Her dad and mom and her sister and her brother are all already there. But she had to stay behind to finish school in England. And she goes to her room and goes to sleep, and they get started. The next day, she meets a man named Zachariah, and he gives her a knife, or a dirk, as it calls it in the story, and she hides it under a mattress for that time. And then days pass normally. She has her meetings with the captain every day to have tea with him and tell him what about the crew that she has learned. And one day, she was watching Ewing sewing his stuff, and he lost his needle, so she had to go into the hold where the crew was and retrieve a needle. And while she was there, she saw something called a red robin, which is where people sign their names on a circle, and it means that they're signing up to kill somebody, pretty much. In this case, it was the captain. She tells the captain about it, and they're up on the deck, and the men come out of the hold, and they all have guns and weapons and stuff. The only one without a weapon is Zachariah. And then a guy named Cranach, who's Jaggery, which is the captain's name, had chopped his arm off. And then he came out, and Captain Jaggery shot him. Then he asked who was the leader of the round robin, and they said, well, nobody said anything, so he picked one guy named Zachariah to come out, and he gave him 50 lashings with a whip. And then, so she became part of the crew by climbing up to the royal yard, which is the highest sail on a ship, and that made her part of the crew. So, and then they run into a hurricane, where Zachariah comes out and helps Charlotte while she's fixing one of the sails that I should have built, but I didn't have time. So Zachariah helped her from falling off into the sea down over there, and then when they came down, they had all the bad sails over here, right here, and they took them all off to throw them into the sea, and they found dead Mr. Hollybrass, who was the first mate. So when they found him, everybody thought it was Charlotte. Well, nobody thought it was Charlotte. They thought it was either Zachariah or Charlotte. But Zachariah accused Charlotte of Jaggery accused Charlotte of murdering him. So she had to go to the brig. And so she went to the brig, and she didn't want to die immediately, so Jaggery said he would give her a trial in the morning. Well, in 24 hours, while she was in the brig, Zachariah came and told her that there was some loose bars. So she went out with him, and they talked for a while, and then she had to go back in. They did that several times until it was time for a trial. So when it was time for a trial, they took her out of the brig and brought her up, and all the crew members were sitting like this in a semicircle with Jaggery in the middle, and he said he was going to let the crew be the jury, and they didn't say anything in her defense, but they didn't say anything against her, so they assumed that meant that she was going to have to be hanged in the next day. So she had to go back down to the brig, and Zachariah, and the second mate, Mr. Keach, had been bringing Zachariah his food and water. One day when he was down there, he and Charlotte and Zachariah helped devise a plan to get Jaggery, because they knew that it was him who did it. But Keach, of course, was working for Jaggery. So he told Jaggery. So when Charlotte went up to his cabin while he was while they thought he was distracted, she went in, and Jaggery was right there. She told him that she had found out that he did it, and he said that yes, it was him, but he was willing to kill anybody to protect his reputation. So later he was doing something, and he fell off the side of the ship, and then they made Charlotte captain, and when they landed in Rhode Island, she got off the ship with her family, and they went back to the house, and she had been keeping a diary or journal this whole time of her events on the ship. So when she gave it to her father, and he didn't like it, so he burned it. And she was really unhappy, so one day when she was getting in bed, she snuck out the window and went back to the ship. And and Fisk, one of her crewmates, was now captain, and Zachariah heard her, and she said she was coming home, and everybody was happy, and the end.